Hi, friends. AI is super cool, but sorry, it's not perfect. And we're still learning about some of the problems and dangers it can have. That's why it's so important to explore AI with a parent, teacher, or guardian to keep things safe. AI is amazing, but your safety always comes first. Ready to dive in together? Let's go.
Welcome to the AI for Kids podcast, where playtime, learning, and creating collide bit by bit. Ever wonder how your phone recognizes your face? How does a game learn to get harder as you get better? This is AI. This podcast is designed for kids like you and your human parents, making the complex world of AI easy to understand and, most importantly, fun. So, are you ready to unlock the mysteries of artificial intelligence? Subscribe and join us on AI for Kids. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to AI for Kids. Today, we have an awesome guest with us, Kanishka Seth. She's an ed tech lead and ELA teacher. Kanishka, you're going to have to tell us what that means. At Lab School and works with cool AI tools that make learning fun. Kanishka, welcome to the show. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into education, and why you love this thing called technology?
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here and share a little bit. So, I actually took a very scenic route into the education career. I started off as a project manager and I got to work with different types of tech when I was in that role. Inspiration for this career came from just my love for being a big sister. And then, the pandemic hit and everyone was doing a lot of soul searching. And I figured I want to do something that I care about more, which is probably education. So I went back to my own teachers, asked them how I can go about getting into the space. And because I had all this tech experience, I just felt like I was naturally very drawn towards ed tech. And, now I get to just combine my love for technology and helping people and creating things, I suppose. And, I just get to play around with tools all day, which is great.
Share more about this big sister role because I too am a big sister. I'm the oldest of four. So share more about how that made you come to this space. I love that.
Yes, I'm actually a middle child. I have a bigger sister and a younger brother.
Nice.
So I used to dabble in and out of having some autonomy in some dynamics and not having any in certain situations.
Right.
But just being a big sister was fun because, like, firstly, my brother thought I was the funniest person, like, ever. When I was working with him, when he was younger, obviously, not so much now. But also just like helping him around with his schoolwork. I used to get to just like mock some of my teachers, in the way that they were in our classroom settings. So it was just fun doing that. And when he was really little, he just had so many questions. And, there were so many ways in which I could try out different ways of helping him. And, as we saw more and more content come on, for example, YouTube, like I was like, maybe you won't get something what I'm trying to say, but perhaps let's ask this person on the internet. So just trying to be adaptable but also resourceful to help him out with his schoolwork all the way until he went to college, to be honest, like reading his college essays and
Oh, wow.
trial interviewing with him and just all of that fun stuff that I guess is not so fun when you're
When you're in
in that,
it.
yeah. But it just seemed like, you're so smart. Let me show you how you should be able to present yourself. You have all these skills. Let's refine and polish and use that talent, right? So definitely just like a genuine desire to want him to be successful, but also like a natural kind of calling, I suppose, where I was like, oh, I know how to do this. Let's try that.
Oh, yeah. That's a beautiful story and just reminds us all of like how we get into spaces is very different. And I want to take you back to even before or maybe during the time you're working with your brother. When you were a kid, what was the coolest thing you ever built or worked on in school? Like I know you were getting him excited about school, but what about for you?
I think in like fifth or sixth grade, I built like this little cardboard robot, which was like
Mm.
a box that was probably like packaged for a microwave or something. The robot did nothing, but I did manage to kind of convince my friends that this robot can detect lies. It's a lie detecting robot because it was my initial days or experiences with creativity and storytelling. So I created something and I built a story around it. And I was like, this can detect your lies. You should be honest.
Imagine they believed you. And speaking of that robot, if you could actually create or invent an AI robot to help kids with something, what would it do and how would it help?
Oh gosh, there's so many things I would like for that, but definitely number one would be a procrastination eliminator robot
Mm,
tool.
I need
Yeah, I think we all can benefit from that. So it doesn't have to be someone who's like mean or like you have to do this or else, but it should be something like, I think it's time for you to get your work done. Just, kindly, gently nudge me to get my work done and maybe, gamify it to give me a reward or create some checkpoints or something like that. But also, like, if I'm stuck, maybe it can just have a chat with me, like, oh, why are you
that.
stuck? Are you feeling tired? Go take a walk. Maybe you're dehydrated.
Right.
So, not just like an organizational tool, but kind of like a well being organizational.
As I'm going to drink some water for the effect. That is super cool. So let's jump into just your work in general. And I love the idea of the procrastination robot because I am a procrastinator. I'm like highly effective, but it is at the last minute. So I would also love an AI that helps me to navigate that and to tell me to go take a walk because I love taking walks. I love to be able to be outside to think and be creative. So I want to dive into your work. So thank you for that idea. You've been using AI in your classroom, which is super interesting. And in a world where some people are, some people aren't, I really want to learn more. So can you explain how something like Khanmigo makes learning more fun and exciting for students?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as I'm at Khan Lab School, I'm very fortunate to be working just on the floor below Khan Academy, which is a digital learning tool. They have a lot of really fun features in addition to just their math content that they publish, which is super popular. And I feel like I wouldn't have passed high school maths myself without Khan Academy, if I really think about it. So, it's quite a whole circle getting to work here. But also, they have these really cool tools. I have a bunch of lesson planning tools that can help me make content relevant for students. It can help me create lesson plans, hooks, engaging activities, exit tickets, and so much more. Students, on the other hand, can also be using this as their personal AI so they can chat with a subject specific chatbot. So you can select Tutor Me Humanities, which is what my students use quite a bit in class, and they try to stretch their thinking, their ideas whenever we're working on projects. So they're like having a one-on-one chat with a peer almost who's always like collaborating with them, who's got endless energy and it's quite kind. It's not like they don't have to worry about their judgment and be a little bit anxious about, oh no, what if they think I'm stupid? So I think that's a really nice thing. So Kanmigo, like it doesn't just give away answers as well. When you ask it some questions, it asks you questions back, and it sparks curiosity. It's not supposed to help you just like find an easy shortcut. And it's designed to support students with their work and not like traditional AI platforms. It's a more student focused platform. And they recently launched this thing called the Writing Coach, which is one of my absolute favorite things in class. And it works with students one on one to draft really solid essays. And where I am, always short for time and not able to give in detail feedback with every student at every stage, they're able to have multiple rounds of back and forth with the AI from Conmigo's writing coach and really refine their essays. So it helps students quite a bit. If Conmigo says this doesn't sound very engaging, you can just go ahead and be like, how can I make it more engaging? And so it's like a big thought partner, always willing and ready to collaborate. And it's awesome for the kids.
One of the things that I often talk about on this podcast, probably every single episode, honestly, is the application in education because like you're stretched thin and you have to do a lot of work with a lot of students. And this serves as a helper for you to be able to give that one-on-one and probably tell you who needs more help and support. So it's very interesting to actually be in a room with an educator who can talk about this stuff. The other piece that educators often bring up, as well as people who are not educators, is that they're a little bit nervous. They don't have Khanmigo, and they're a little bit nervous that kids are going to go on ChatGPT or on Claude or whoever else is out there, right, and just plug stuff in. How can students use AI the right way, not just for answers, but for learning?
I feel like teachers are always trying to find a balance between,
Yeah.
letting students have autonomy, but then at what point does it become academic dishonesty? Or
Yeah.
how do we encourage more critical thinking, right? Without just caring about grades. So I often like to tell my students that AI is like using a flashlight. Like if you're in a dark cave, which is your, day-to-day life, your task at hand, and you have to make it through, It can help you see things perhaps more clearly, but you still have to use your judgment. Like, is that thing that's approaching me going to harm me, right? Is this something that I need to run from? Is this something that's not a threat? And should I go and explore further, right? You still have to be the master of your own flashlight and decide where you point it, right? And find your way out of problems. So I definitely encourage, like, instead of just asking for answers, obviously you should use AI as a brainstorming tool, get feedback, right? Refine again, ask further questions. It's free. And also just like use it to learn new skills. There's so much that kids can do with this wonderful tool without having to kind of make it like a point of abusing it.
Very sure.
Yeah, like you have this wonderful partner in learning and a partner who's always down with so much energy. And it works with your schedule.
Oh, yeah. That's the part. I can't call someone up at all times of the day. AI, you can.
Absolutely. And it will definitely be honest in their opinions because not competing with you. It doesn't have a personal interest or something to lose or gain from your progress. So it's definitely not designed to kind of trick you in any way. It's supposed to just help you but you still have to apply yourself at every step of the way.
I love the flashlight example. If I use it, I will make sure to give you credit because that just like opened my mind to even thinking about how to explain it to young people. So that's super helpful. And I love that example. And I'm sure our listeners will too. The other piece is that you love project-based learning. And one, I need you to explain what that means. I think in general, most people will know, but I would love for you to explain that. But then how does AI make these projects even more cool, even more creative? What does that look like?
Yeah, AI takes projects to the next level in and outside the classroom, both. Project-based learning is essentially a format. So it really kind of helps students contextualize what they're learning into how it's relevant to the real world. It gives them a more focused area that they care about a little bit more because usually most teachers let students pick their own projects. For example, this is like a real life example, I suppose. If they're designing a business, they can use AI to create a logo, a slogan, your mission and vision statement. They can create customer feedback surveys through using AI without even having all of that knowledge like effectively or formally learned or taught in the classroom. You have like a whole creative team driving your entire project forward, and that could be really fun. One of the projects that my students did in my previous role was to design a futuristic city.
Ooh.
It was like a sustainable futuristic city and had like self-driving buses and AI-powered recycling systems. And, we need that everywhere.
It's cool because especially based on how kids learn, and some kids learn in different ways, like allowing a kid to like have a project or something that they're focused on and then using AI to pull different components in. It's just a unique way to explore AI. And I'm really excited about that.
It also lets students kind of hone their interests. Like not every student would be interested in every single part of the content that is being taught, but they can take whatever strikes to them as like, oh, this can be fun, and really work with whatever inspires you to make that into something of your own, Yeah.
That's a good point. I never thought about that. So I come from the world of like, teacher told you to do something, you partnered up with people and you all did it. Often a couple people in the group did the bulk of the work. I didn't take the opportunity to learn like, what was I good at in this project? And I love the idea of what you're talking about, that it can help me identify that I may love marketing or I may love the finance part of it and the numbers part of it, and help you think about what parts makes you excited, even as a young person trying to figure out this world of just in general, like beyond AI, just like, what do I want to do when I grow up? Or what does that look like? It can help you identify those skills. That's really interesting to think about. I hadn't thought about that before. If you were to give advice to kids who are just starting to explore AI and might feel a little intimidated, or they're in a space where they're not supposed to use it. So we got to be careful, kids. You got to get permission from your parents to use it before you do anything we say going forward.
Yes, please.
Or in general, also parents. Like there are parents who are nervous about this and they want to let their kids use it, but they don't know what to do. What is advice that you have?
Number one is, I think, don't be afraid to experiment, right? I keep telling kids in my classroom, beyond, and just wherever, is for kids, firstly. It's free. It's not going to cost you any money. Just, don't be afraid to experiment. It's kind of like a sandbox. You can play around, you can make mistakes. It's not permanent. And just keep learning as you go. Start small, though. Don't just suddenly think that you have this massive burden of AI and you have to master it all and you need to learn everything, because it's constantly evolving. So essentially, it's impossible. It's impossible to master something this grand, right? There's so much out there.
That's a good point.
But also, start something small and maybe not super ambitious, and then see how far you can go. So like maybe write a story or try to solve a riddle or a math problem and see, how it takes you and what works for you, right? Not everything would be the
Yeah.
same for you as the experiences of other people. And for parents, I think of AI as a tool, like a vehicle, right? And it's not a replacement for learning. The idea of using AI in education is not so that we don't teach our fundamental skills, right? Our core skills are actually even more important in the day of AI than they ever were historically. But think of it like a calculator, where it helps with the hard
Yeah.
stuff or with the more time consuming stuff, but you still need to understand the basics.
It's a tool, it's a vehicle. I love that. So, parents who are listening, I imagine you're here because you want to know what your kids are listening to about this AI thing. But that's a very good point you're making. And with that being said, you've done some things, I'm sure, that are exciting related to AI. Can you tell us about one of the most exciting AI projects your students have done? Maybe something that could inspire other kids and their parents possibly to try AI projects too?
So I like to go back to the business one because entrepreneurship is a big part of the stuff I like to teach. It's usually interdisciplinary, and thanks to AI, it can weave even more disciplines into any class. So using AI to design a logo, write product descriptions, explore the competition out there, explore a market for something, One of my students actually tried to create a jetpack business.
Oh,
And they
wow.
try to figure out where in the world it would be successful. And they come back after 20 minutes of, going back and forth with the AI. And they're just like, well, the EU has a law on just electronic vehicles and a jetpack
Mm.
is run on fuel. And I was just like, see, I would have never thought of that. I would have never been able to give you that advice.
Yeah, I didn't
So,
know. I was thinking in my head, where would I send the kid? I don't know. Like, other than like California and Silicon Valley is my only like
yeah.
answer of like, that's where they're doing some of this stuff. But that's a good idea.
Yeah, he was like, my parents are not always free to drive me to school or to the park or to my friend's place, so I can just jet on my own and I can come back. And they can control it with their smartphones. And I was like, okay, that's actually kind of really cool,
It is.
It was really fun to just watch the process, but also watch students take so much agency because they really cared to make this. And so it was like a real life example of combining creativity, technology, while solving like a real world problem that was real to the student's life?
Oh yeah. I can't do a jetpack because I'm afraid of height. The most in my mind I could do is like a hoverboard. Other than that, and it needs to be like less than a foot off the ground. That's where I'm at. But a jetpack, I've seen some of them out there, like folks playing around with versions of them. They're super
hmm
cool. I mean, in the future world, I imagine we could be going around like that. Less fuel being used, potentially even electronic ones. Like who knows?
hmm
So it's gonna be interesting to see. So shout out to that young person looking out for that company. If it happens, feel free to let us know.
You heard it here first.
Right, here first. AI for Kids with Kanishka. So next, I want to play a fun game with you. I think it's fun because I'm not in the hot seat. I'll be in the hot seat later, but this game is called AI in Action. I'm going to name a word, and then you should tell us how you think AI might make it better. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's go.
I'm going to make it as easy as possible, and be as creative as possible. A movie.
A movie. I think it would be fun to have like an interactive movie. You know how Netflix is starting to do those game style
Yeah.
things where you can pick the ending that you want or, decide which character stays, which doesn't. So definitely an interactive movie film where the audience gets to decide what happens next. So like a choose your own adventure
Oh, yeah.
on the big screen.
I would love that for movies. One, because I used to be a big choose your own adventure book reader back in the day. And kids, I don't know if y'all have these now. You may know more, Kanishka, than I do, but you would skip to a page based on where you wanted to go in your story and you kind of did your own thing. So I imagine me sitting down either watching Netflix or even in the movie theater. If we all could vote on what happens next. So much fun. I love
Yeah.
that idea.
Yeah, it's awesome. Sounds like fun.
The next one, a game. And however you want to define game is up to you.
As someone who historically is very competitive at games, but also may not always win, I think it has to adapt to my level. I would like it to be like
Mm,
an adaptive game. And if I'm struggling, it should just adjust itself so that I can still win and I can still be
I
competitive.
like that.
And if I'm crushing it, it should challenge me further?
Oh, yeah.
So it goes both ways. Yeah.
I'm also competitive. I'm also the person that starts at the beginning phase to like learn enough so I can get better with the game as it progresses. But I love the idea of it meets you where you are. So it's like, oh, today Amber doesn't feel like doing this. So let's take it down a little bit for her, give her a few wins under her belt. I think that's super cool.
Yeah.
And then the last one, because you're a teacher, the subject of English.
I actually do teach English at middle school, so spot on. But I think AI could help students really like write stories by suggesting plot twists, helping them create characters. It's quite fascinating. Sometimes my students ask the AI to pretend to be this character or take on a specific persona, like to really get inside your character's head. It's like co-authoring, and it's got, again, endless ideas, endless time, and flexibility. So, yeah, definitely writing.
You use the word persona. What does that mean for those who may not know what it means?
So, just like giving your AI a personality, building like this is what you do, this is what you like, this is what you would never say. You would never be mean to children,
Oh, yeah.
you would never be mean to old people, like giving it some kind of like a list of traits that they have. And maybe if you want to even go deeper than that, key events in your life that made you the person that you are. And then getting into that person's brain would be the next step of then kind of having a conversation with that AI character that you've just created.
Thank you for that definition. I would not have been able to do it in that way. So again, learning a lot here today. Even kids, adults can learn too. So what's one simple thing kids can do to use AI safely and responsibly? I feel like I'm always having this conversation. I've even added, like at the beginning of the podcast, a disclaimer, like to remind kids of this, especially with all the stuff that's happening in this space right now around like character AI and things like that. So what's a simple thing kids can do?
I think for the most part, kids, you guys have your own judgment. If you find yourself asking that, oh, should I be doing this or am I going to get trouble because of this? Probably should really evaluate that choice, right? And also when it specifically comes to learning and education and educational AI, I suppose, you should really always try to reflect on, is this really helping me learn or am I taking a shortcut? Like, is this going to help me in the long term? Or is it just going to help me get through my homework and then go out and play? So, I think that's number one. Use your judgment, be wise. You are much smarter than the AI, so you should be able to answer these questions.
Oh, yeah.
But also, not everything that AI says is true. It very much has its limitations. It hallucinates. It makes stuff up. Sometimes you can even ask the AI, is this correct? Is this a fact? And sometimes it says, actually, that in fact may not be factually correct.
Exactly.
Think of it as someone that you can ask some questions to, but you cannot 100% rely on all the time.
Agree. And how do you think AI will change just how we do homework and how kids learn in school in the future? I think you're at like the forefront of this conversation, and I want to hear it from you.
I think homework definitely has just become more fun and more personalized for students, especially in my years of working with generative AI in the classrooms. So definitely more personalized, more interactive. I imagine that every student has like an AI tutor, to kind of fill in the gaps, perhaps, which is quite nice to have. For students who kind of struggle with confidence when asking the teacher for feedback or are perfectionists, it really helps them get that validation from this tool before they have to submit things. It can explain things to you in the way that makes sense to you. So I think definitely looking ahead, like AI is transforming every day how kids are, even their attitudes towards homework, but as well as like how they actually execute.
That's exciting. I would imagine if I were a kid in this world right now and being able to work with a AI tutor alongside my human tutor, it would be fun. I know I live on the different chatbots, et cetera, and I spend a lot of time there and I really enjoy it. I feel like I'm learning so much. I'm able to brainstorm. And like you said, if I don't have someone sitting next to me, this thing doesn't judge me. It's just helping me out to get to wherever it is I need to go. When in reality, because I don't have someone next to me that can help me think through, it's a really good learning partner.
And it explains you things in a way that would make sense to you. So
Exactly
you can
right.
really actually reiterate again and again or try a different approach.
I like that too. I use AI to help break things down in a way a kid can understand when I'm like talking about stuff to adults, because often when you're in a field, you get so technical or you get so into the weeds and you forget how to talk about stuff in a way that most people can understand. And it really helps. And even I know for my AI tools, I often say, talk to me how I talk to you so I can better be able
Yeah.
to like meet it where it is. And that's a very good point on what you just said around just helping kids in the way that they want to be helped. I think that's super cool. So if a kid is listening right now, wanted to start learning about AI, what's a fun activity or project you suggest they try?
Oof, there's so many. Let's not be too ambitious, though. I want to give this other example that I think was really fun. One student in my class in the past has used AI to write a poem from the perspective of a rejected apple. Okay. And it was a commentary actually on food waste and how people don't buy food or farmers have to chuck a bunch of their produce out because of the way that the food or the produce looks, right? Because it was ugly fruit. So they first like went and did all this research about to what extent is this actually a problem. They investigated how much food is thrown away because of it being ugly fruit and other things that they are affected by this, like farmers' compensation, right? How much do we undercut them because of this? And then they use this knowledge to capture that into a poem which talks about in the ways that the apple actually can add value and think about the people who don't have anything. And there's more beyond what meets the eye. And it's just not about this rejected apple being so ugly,
Yeah.
but to the core, literally. So this was so much more impactful. Like when they did a reading of this out loud, it had such a great impact on the listeners and definitely highlighted a problem more effectively than reading a report on this.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so this kind of creativity and this kind of creative use or application of AI just like really fascinates me. And if they could talk about apples being ugly with like a massive research project backing this creative project, I really want to say, kids, the opportunities are endless. Find your passions, try your things, and honestly learn more about yourself, right? What you care about by having these endless conversations.
You just explaining and sharing just some of the things that were in the poem literally like opened my mind, because there are companies that are trying to solve the problem, like very few, but they like charge you less for fruit that is bruised or has an issue. But to your point, like we have a big food crisis in the world. Like, what does it mean to then have this young person study all this, come to AI and say, hey, let's create something fun that's going to resonate with people, that's going to make people feel like this is something they can possibly even help be a part of. And I appreciate you sharing that story, because these are things I just don't think about, even as a person who uses this thing daily, all day, every day. There's some moments where I'm like, oh, wow, I wouldn't think about that. And as a person who also writes reports and things like that, reports often go unread and no one like wants to
Yeah,
read all that. So what is a creative way? And this is a great example of how you can do that.
for sure.
What is the coolest AI tool or app you've ever seen? And why do you think kids would like it?
I like for kids specifically, I think something like DALL-E, where you can create visuals based on whatever you have in your mind.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's definitely something always gets me. Like I'm always like, whoa,
Right.
But what's fun for kids specifically, and I also speaking from experience from students in my classrooms, you can literally type anything like a description of anything, and then it will create art. And it's sometimes so good that you want to frame it and put it in your living room. A dragon playing basketball in Paris, and boom, there it is. Like a dragon wearing a jersey flying over the Eiffel Tower. The kids love it and they love the trial and error process of it, and they're refining their prompt process of it. And it can be quite comical as well, you know?
Yeah, that one alone is
Yeah.
comical. Imagine if you're a kid listening to this. I didn't even think about this. I just recently used AI to redecorate my bottom
Mhm.
floor. So I took a picture of the space and used Dolly actually. So kids like actually use this to like do something with. And it helped me to find like different things. Took a picture of my floor. It gave me an idea. I wanted like trendy colors, whatever, trying to like be hip. And then it gave me a visual of the room. Then I was like, oh, tell me where I can find things that look like this. And then it gave me the links to
Yeah.
it. But what I didn't think about until today, again, learning even as adults, is we can print out the art and decorate the room. So if there was something that I made in that space, like the dragon playing basketball in the Eiffel Tower, and that's my room theme, I can print out a huge poster and put it on my wall. I love
Yeah.
that. And kids do that.
Absolutely. Try it out. It is quite fun.
Oh, yeah. You've just taken it to a different level for me. So now it's time to put me in the hot seat. We have a fun bio segment that kind of goes into your bio, and it's called Two Truths and a Dream. You're going to share two things that are true about you and one dream, job, or experience that you had as a kid that didn't necessarily happen, but you wanted it to. So let's see if I can guess, along with the kids at home, what is the dream, job, or experience. And feel free to name them in any order you want to, and then we'll go back and forth.
All right. I'll make it an easy enough one. So
Thank you.
I've used Khanmigo in my classroom. I have worked as a project manager.
Okay.
And as a kid, I wanted to become a video game designer.
Okay, so you've used Khanmigo in your classroom, you worked as a project manager, and as a kid, you want to be a video game designer.
Yeah.
So, kids, if we think back to her interview, one of the things she did tell us is that she is using Khanmigo, so we can put that one aside and say that is, in fact, true.
Mm-hmm.
The one I'm a bit confused on, only because you have a tech background, so often a lot of people in tech do project management. You also are very competitive, so you might have wanted to create games. So, I'm going to say that because you are in tech and likely had to project manage, or used to be in tech and had to project manage something, you are a project manager. I'm going to say the dream job or idea is game creator.
Spot on.
Okay, good. Yay! Hopefully kids at home also got that right. What's one big idea you hope kids listening today will remember about AI?
AI is a tool. You are a creator. You know, it's your ideas, your creativity, and your curiosity that really bring it forward. So you are in control.
And if you could recommend one person in AI that kids should follow or learn from, who would it be and why?
Yeah, so she's a local Bay Area celebrity. Her name's Dr. Fei Li. She's from Stanford. She is a woman in AI, and she's been in this space for about more than a decade. She's quite a trailblazer. But she also talks about a lot of like technology for good and AI for good. So her focus on using AI for healthcare or education, I think those are really important topics. Yeah, in addition to just like breaking the glass ceiling, she's a trailblazer. She's trying to encourage and promote the positive uses of tech. I think starting there would be a great place to start. Yeah.
I will definitely link information about her in the show notes, kids. So make sure you work with your parents to get that. Is there anything fun or cool you like to share with our listeners, or anything I didn't ask you that you want to make sure you share before we say goodbye?
I would like to give the listeners a little task, actually, if they want with AI, do this with your parents, you know, older siblings. You know, a fun challenge for all the kids listening would be to ask any AI tool, you know, something that you can converse with back and forth. Ask this AI to help you create a superhero. What kind of powers do you want them to have? What's the backstory, you know, that the superhero has? They have a scar. Did they fall when they were playing basketball as a kid? All sorts of things. Why do they wear glasses? Do they speak multiple languages? And let your imagination run wild. Be as specific and as general as you can, and just try it out. You'll be surprised by the result, but you'll also learn something about what really matters to you. What are your true values, you know? Why do you want your superhero to be that person? So, you know, have a way with it.
Kanishka, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your amazing AI ideas and just your journey. And to all of our listeners, thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe to AI for Kids and stay curious.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for joining us as we explored the fascinating world of artificial intelligence. Don't keep this adventure to yourself. Download it, share it with your friends, and let everyone else in on the fun. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts or on YouTube. See you next time on AI for Kids.